Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Pride celebration call, connecting LGBTQ plus and intellectual and developmental disability families across the rainbow. I want to say a special thank you to Massachusetts Advocates Standing Strong, or MASS, and their tagline is "For self-advocates by self-advocates." They've partnered with MassFamilies to bring this call today. I will just introduce our panel and step aside and have them lead the call in a second. Next slide, please. I want to take a moment and do a land acknowledgement. I am currently on the native land of the Wampanoag, Massachusetts, and Pokanoket historical tribal lands. Next slide. And this is our panel. We're going to go through one-on-one in their bios and introduce them. Next slide. All right, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our moderator, Madeline Stump, MPH, pronouns she, her, identifies as neurodivergent, multiply chronically ill, and a sapphic demisexual non-binary trans woman. Professionally, Madeline is a project associate with Mass Health and consults as an independent population health researcher. Also, Madeline is a graduate Len Fellow. Actually, we graduated the same year. That's how I met her. She's wonderful. And the founder of the 200+ member Trans Women in FemMe Network. Madeline, please take it.
Thank you very much, Rania, for introducing today's panel. So our next bio is Pauline Bosma, whose pronouns are she, her. Pauline is the Rainbow Program Coordinator and founder of the Rainbow Support Groups for LGBTQ+ people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Pauline works for Massachusetts Advocates Standing Strong, where she also leads sex education webinars and trains people with disabilities to respond to and report abuse. We also have Eddie Harriel Jr., he, him, his, who is a 29-year-old Black man who identifies as disabled, is from Chicago, and is currently living in a group home. He is a former ambassador of Proud and Included and currently volunteers with the Rainbow Group as a chairman. He completed Illinois' Self-Advocacy Alliance's Ambassador Leadership Program. He is currently working with the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance LGBTQ group project on webinar trainings for the LGBTQ Pride Month. We also have Meri Viano, whose pronouns are she, her, and she is a lesbian parent of 3 young adults and a grandchild. Meri works in the field to advocate for all with disabilities and has open discussions with youth, parents, leaders, and more to talk about the equity needed for all. System change is a priority for Meri, and the ability to support and connect help to all youth and young people. Next, we have Nora Johnsen, she, her, who is a disability rights advocate and storyteller. Nora has also given presentations at colleges, social service agencies, and for doctors in Syracuse, Boston, and Montreal. She also has a one-person play, I Dream a World, where she shares her struggles, triumphs, and dreams as an individual with a disability. Nora has greatly enjoyed being a member of the Mass Advocates Standing Strong /Rainbow group. We also have Heather Johnson, whose pronouns are she, her, and is a parent of 3 children, 2 who identify as part of the LGBT community. And since having a child with a disability, she became a disability rights advocate and led a youth group at the Utica Resource Center for Independent Living. Most of her time now is helping her daughter to become more independent, supporting her with her advocacy and disability and LGBT rights. Then we have Fran, Hladysz, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Apologies if I didn't. Whose pronouns are he, him, they. who is a Rainbow Group facilitator and peer trainer. So he is also a Massachusetts Advocate Standing Strong board member, representing Rainbow and at large. He teaches training about LGBTQ, sexuality, and self-advocacy leadership series, SALES. He works on the Harvard Law School Project on Disability, HPOD, research project to improve individual service plans, ISPs. He is a strong and true advocate and makes sure advocacy is possible, not impossible. And next we have Margaret Hladysz, I apologize, whose pronouns are she, her, and is the primary caregiver to a queer sibling with an intellectual and developmental disability or delay. For the past 12 years, she has dedicated her career to working with those with disabilities within the human services field. Margaret spends free time community organizing to protect the rights of marginalized groups through awareness and political action. As a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, Margaret's passion for equity propelled them to create and facilitate a Pride Alliance for individuals with disabilities. So now we are going into our first question with our panelists. That being, what does acceptance look like around disability and being LGBTQ+ with respect to family? Does anyone want to start?
Nora?
Well,
Oh, you went on mute, sorry. Oh, Nora, you're on mute. There you go.
thanks. What I was going to say is that it was easier for me to come out as bisexual because my brother was gay, and we both like kind of came out to like each other. So that was really easy with that. And also, you know, I knew that, you know, my family was really accepting of other things, so they might be accepting of the LGBT.
Nice, that's good to hear.
I could add that to that and say that yes, when I was young in high school and in college, it wasn't as accepted. And so my background might have made it more difficult, but when I went to college, I was exposed to a lot more and things were starting to get a little bit better. So when my son came out, I was very supportive. And then when Nora came out, I was a little worried because she had a disability. And okay, is this going to cause people to think, you know, to treat her differently? That was my only fear. But you know, I totally supported her, and our family luckily is right on with all of it, so it's great.
Yeah,
that's phenomenal to hear. Yeah, does anyone else have any have answers to this question as well?
Yes.
Eddie, do you want to go first?
Yes, I'm gonna say for me, my family accept me as my disability, but being an LGBT, being gay, they're not accepted to me being gay.
Is there anything you want to expand on that with?
I'm gonna say for my family accept me for being have disability, but they'll accept me being gay. You know.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, unfortunately, not all families, you know, dissimilar from Nora and Heather's experiences. Not all families will accept both the LGBT and disability sides of a child or a family member's experiences and embodiment in the world. Yeah. Fran?
So for me, I was really nervous at first because in my family, I was brought up as Byzantine Catholic, and I knew the church didn't always accepted LGBTQ people especially the fact that I had a disability. People thought, oh, let's treat differently because they have a disability background, or happen to be on top of that being gay. And I remember when I came out, it really felt really good that my parents, we were having my favorite dinner that night, and I said to them that I'm gay really fast, and they told me, "What'd you say?" And I said, "I'm gay." And there was a moment of silence, and my mom came over and said, "It's okay, son, we still love you, and we'll always love you and accept you for who you are." And it's just having that additional support with my parents accepting me being gay, being disabled, it is tremendously, I won't take anything back. But my point,
Absolutely.
yeah, my point is even if the person doesn't get the support they need from their family, a friend could be a really good source to talk to.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point, that there are many different avenues through which LGBT people with disabilities can find support. And also family of origin supporting us can be extremely influential, can be extremely impactful and important. So both end, I suppose, definitely. Yeah, Margaret?
So I think what always strikes me is it, generally speaking, when we talk about disability, there's a understanding, there's a appreciation, a respect for the fact that disabilities are out of our control. We're born with them, right? And so what's interesting to me is that I view your gender identity and your sexual orientation in the same light, right? That's who we are, is who we're born with. However, I think society is still catching up sometimes to the idea that those are both on the same fields. And so I think when we talk about what does acceptance look like, it looks like equity and in respect to the idea that it's someone's authentic self.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And does anyone else have any other answers to this first question of acceptance around being disabled and LGBT? Yep, from family. Meri?
So I really like what you said, Margaret. I think one of the things that comes up for me specifically around what acceptance looks like is really not needing the approval of, but more being supported, being given the autonomy to have what is. I really like what you said, the authentic self, allowing a person to be the person that they are with who they identify. I think when it comes to family, it's really personalized. And I try really hard to talk to parents or young people if it's their sibling and or it's hard to come out to their family member, meaning a parent or a sibling, to really talk about the fact that this is who I am, I deserve support, and this is going to be kind of what the next steps are. And disability or not, really to look at this full equity. And I love what you said, that authentic self, that this is who I am. I also think what comes up for me is often there are people in my experience and even in my own family, where you have people that really truly accept you, and they are the teachers to the people that may not know what to do. And I think it's important to have those champions and allies around you so that it can make the uncomfortable comfortable for our family members.
Absolutely. Very wonderfully said. And Pauline, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, I mean, I had a little bit of like my mother really didn't I mean, there was times that she did understand, she didn't really understand and everything like that. I mean, there was things that happened in my life that were like really different. Like I got a picture of me in a lime green jacket when I was 7 years old and everything like that, with a fur hood and everything like that. And I didn't pick the jacket; my mother picked the jacket and everything like that. But it's a girl's jacket, but I mean, it was probably hand me down from one of my sisters and everything like that. So, but then when my mother did find out and everything like that, she did kind of say, like, she said, "Oh, you would make an ugly looking woman." you know, it made me feel bad. But then, you know, on my mother's deathbed, she looked at me and she said, "I love you for who you are." So that gave me a little more feeling that, you know, she went up in heaven or wherever, and she loved me for me. So that made me feel better. So, but you know, so yeah, and most of my family disowned me, so I don't really have siblings. I have two siblings alive, but they disowned me, so I don't really talk to them. So, but I got a lot of people in my life that are my family. So
Definitely. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I mean, just speaking in my own experiences, I have also been disowned from almost all of my family, both immediate and extended in terms of my family of origin or biological family. So at this point, most of the support that I have in my life, of which I have found a great deal over the last, especially over the last several years, has come from my chosen family, from people who I've found who were once friends or entered my life in a multitude of different ways, and have become my family, have become a source of tremendous support around being LGBT and in being disabled. I think having folks who can honor all of who you are, not and yeah, inclusive of being LGBT and of being disabled is such an important thing to have in one's life, whether they're chosen family or family of origin. Okay, so thank you all for answering. Our next question is, how does self-advocacy fit in your life, being both LGBTQ plus and disabled? And I want to start.
I can start. Number one, they both collide together because it's something that you believe in, like you believe in yourself, that you are gay, you believe in that you're a strong advocate, and you need to advocate for what you need in life. Like if you don't go to the source of the people that you need to advocate for what you believe in, like it's gonna make it harder. And with being an LGBTQ person with a disability, we may need to advocate for help when we need something that we're struggling with. And you know, we do struggle time to time because it's hard for us to understand where we're coming at. Like I'm sure that like a lot of people can question their gender a lot. And gender is a big whole topic, not just alone having a disability to understand that. Like not everyone understands a lot of things that we say in life. So that's why everyone's here to learn how to accept and understand people with LGBTQ plus with disabilities and families.
Absolutely. Yeah, does anyone else? Oh yeah, Nora or do you have an answer?
Yeah, what I do to advocate is like doing my play presentations, but I also, try to make the advocacy conferences when I can, and I make sure that I'm signing petitions and stuff for certain things. I'm trying to do the best I can for the LGBT and also the disability field. So whatever I can do to help is the best. So that's what I have to say about that.
And I, as her mother, have been taking this on as well because I love to support her. I help bring her to events. I'm like joining in and meeting all of her friends and learning this wonderful community, and then sharing that with a lot of my friends who might not have someone with a disability or who identify as LGBTQ, so that we're models for acceptance for everyone. And the other thing is, it's part of my life, it's fun. We've learned to have a lot of fun with it as well. And so to present it as a positive rather than as some people think of as a negative is the way to go, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that showcases very well that advocacy, that self-advocacy can take many, many different forms. As you mentioned, whether it's, advocating for legislation that will support you and your communities, or if it's, talking to friends as an ally and saying, these are the experiences that I'm seeing, and this is why it's important to support LGBT people and disabled people. Yeah, it can take many forms, and all of it is important. Anyone else want to jump in? Yeah, Meri.
So, I think this is really important with the self-advocacy and how it fits in. I would say that, how Heather had mentioned, it can be an easy fix. I think we have to look at, I know the advocacy for myself and young people within my life that I support, looking at the intakes, looking at paperwork, including pronouns is really important. Calling people the name of which they identify is really important to feel that you matter. And I think when we show people that their voice matters, you can get a level of trust and connection that maybe you wouldn't get. I do also think in the component of using pronouns and getting to a point of including all, whether it's restrooms and other pieces, the conversation needs to be there, because if people feel safe and they feel that they're equal, then people can both trust and they can get to that next level. I do think part of the challenge, often in my challenge, I don't know if others feel this, in the self-advocacy, and especially with the self-advocacy of LGBTQ and people that have a disability or different abilities, is that often we don't go to that person and ask them what they need. And everyone has a voice, even if they're not able to speak. People have a voice and they can often express what they need. We just have to give them the time that they need to express it in the way that we understand, that we can work with them to give them their needs.
Yeah, and I definitely would love to piggyback off of that, because when I read this question, the first thing that comes to mind for me is two different perspectives. First, a perspective I have as a sibling and a caregiver to someone that has an intellectual disability and is also LGBTQIA, which when I think of that perspective, I'm always in awe of how much work Francesco has done to empower himself to be able to be a voice for those around, not just around him and himself. His articulation has improved through his self-advocacy. And so I find that to be really interesting, how him pushing himself every day to try to better the rights and the treatment and the support and the inclusion for not only himself, but his peers, has actually helped him to overcome some of the deficits of his disability. And I always stand in awe of that. My second perspective on this is more from a professional standpoint from my career. And one component of self-advocacy that I find makes it or breaks it when it comes to outcomes is the voice of the individuals themselves. So to Meri's point, our support and our treatment and services get better the more that we're able to hear firsthand accounts and stories from the individuals we serve. And so I think that communication, that voice is critical for us and where we are right now in our timeline.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, I mean, that goes into the, as an example, the power and the influence of the term, or of the phrase, nothing about us without us, as far as, yes, definitely the disabled community, but also the LGBT community has also taken that up in a lot of ways as well. I think back of like the HIV/AIDS crisis, for instance, and the ways in which folks had to advocate that they be in the room to make decisions when they were often being excluded from spaces of decision making as people who had HIV and AIDS. So just kind of some of the overlap of those communities there.
That's why we have to support together, because we can't live off of just ourselves. We have to work together to make something positive.
Yeah, and I think in celebration of Pride Month, it's important to talk about the fact that in our country, we went through a very long journey in terms of trying to change public opinion and trying to create, an inclusive, accepting society. And in the 90s, there was a drastic change in the tactic used to try to help communicate stories. And what that was is we moved away from looking at the definition of marriage. We looked away at talking about the legality of equity in that sense of language. And what we did instead is we focused on having real people come out and share their stories and say, hey, I am gay. And what that did is that changed the perspective from, okay, are you saying you don't believe that LGBTQIA plus people have the right to get married? Or are you saying that Margaret, your coworker that you've worked with for 20 years, who's your closest friend at work, doesn't have the right to get married? And so when we were able to change the perspective to be more personal, to understand that we're humans, I think that's how we changed minds, is by changing hearts. And I think the same goes for disability, for what it's worth.
Definitely. Eddie, would you like to contribute?
Yes. Well, I'm a person of color. And then second, I'm a person who has disability. And I went to a special school too. And second, with third, I am gay. So it's like I'm both. I know definitely how my life was being both, Black and have disability and being gay. It's all not great, but I learned I know that I can learn. I learned different. In school, people that help me, learn different and in my pace. And being gay is like that came like kind of after, but yes, I'm being both.
That makes sense. Would you like to expand on that at all?
Yes, I was saying like having disability. I have different people that with teachers. They teach me how to special teachers and all in special ed programs, and teachers teach me how to learn stuff different than normal people do, and that help me be more smart. And I have auntie with teachers who have me every day reading books, and they help me be more she like my disability compare me. You know what I mean?
In terms of your instructors or teachers being allies of sorts to you, is that what you're getting at?
No, I'm saying behind a teacher they have me to read a book every day and help me how to learn that I learn different than I could do more than based on what people say on paper.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to add to this question?
I think one thing to understand, there are websites out there to help understand, the LGBTQ community, but also with disabilities. Nora, myself, and Pauline, and Oscar, we created a guidebook to understand, to realize that we are just like anyone else in this world. We may struggle, but that's the same thing with you. And we're not perfect, you're not perfect. And this guidebook will help you understand that where to find resources for like groups, how to share difficult things that are not easy to open up. And it's just, what I'm trying to say is like, if you take that extra effort to go research something, it goes a long way. And not just going research online, ask someone. Like, I'm sure not all of you have gone up to someone and say, what does this mean? Or what does that mean? Can you give it to me more better definition? And it's just, you have like resources there. There's many things that you can do. My point is that you just have to open up and don't be shy about it. Just ask away. There's no such thing as a dumb question.
I would mostly agree with that. I would say that yes, there's no dumb questions. And also, if anyone on this call is going up to people who are LGBT and or disabled and asking them questions, to definitely try to do it very respectfully. There's lots of lots of ways to not do it respectfully, and that's important to avoid. So just a little tidbit there. Okay, want to move on to our next question. Come on, there we go. So question 3, what are the ways you advocate for what you need as someone who is LGBTQ plus and disabled? Yeah, Nora?
I try to make sure that my needs are met, and that, you know, I'm using my voice about certain things, because sometimes there are things that are going on in my life that I have a hard time dealing with, but like if I tried to explain it a different way to someone, maybe they would understand, you know. So
You have maybe an example of that?
Well, I'm trying to be as independent as I can. You know, I'm trying to work with DDS to get services and stuff. And there have been times where people haven't been calling us back or answering our emails and stuff. And like, I feel as an advocate that, you know, it's good that I'm able to, you know, be on top of that stuff and be able to make sure things are going the way they need to go. So that's the way I feel about it.
Well, I think
Absolutely.
also, as Nora's involved with the Rainbow Group,
Mm.
and everybody's helping each other to find ways to do this. I also think that voting is very important. Writing letters, talking to the commissioner, things like that. But the system where we were in New York State, there were still a lot of problems, but it wasn't nearly as complex as it has been here in Massachusetts. So it's been pretty tough, but that's why it's really important to have a circle of support. And you can't really do it alone. You have to be able to have a lot of help in trying to get your services in the system, and it takes a long time, and you have to have patience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Oh yeah, Fran?
I was gonna say, yeah, I agree, because I feel like constantly, like, the system is like you always have to advocate really strongly, or really tell them like, this is, you know, what I want, not what you need. You know, you have to really give it to them as a perspective how you are feeling inside, and let them understand this is something that I need to help benefit me, or having the just advocating on who you are is one thing, but also advocating for, like Nora said, like, services are extremely hard. But, you know, as advocates, we are ones that are making sure for this is possible for us. Not like if someone tells us, oh, you know, you can't do that, even though you know inside that you are entitled to a service, or you are not getting the treatment you feel. Because if you don't advocate what you want or need, you're not gonna get anywhere in life. Like, I just started accepting help like a year or two ago, and that was even hard for me to just ask for help. But I know now that there's no such thing as you're doing something wrong as for help. So asking for help. So my point I'm trying to say is, it's a constantly battle, but at the end, it's really worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, just to share a bit of my own experiences, so one of my disabilities, conditions, whatever you want to call it, is something called idiopathic hypersomnia, which is a very rare condition. And I had multiple clinicians tell me that I most likely didn't have it. I really, really had to push for over the course of maybe a year and a half, I think it was, to undergo what's called a sleep test to figure out what was going on with me. And that, it wasn't, it was mostly the pushback was because I also have mental illnesses, and they were ascribing my problems with sleep to my mental illnesses. And now I understand that those are not the same thing, that they're two different aspects of my experiences of disabilities. But I really had to push, and I don't think that's too dissimilar from my experiences as a trans woman, pushing for over the course of several years for people to take me seriously as someone who wants to have kids one day, because my being trans, in many people's eyes, inherently excluded me from the possibility of parenthood. Yeah, and I think those two things are not entirely dissimilar, that there's overlaps there in terms of the importance of advocacy, especially in my experience within the medical industry. So a bit of my experience. Meri?
Madeline, I just wanted to jump off something that you said that was really important and then come back to the ways that I advocate for myself. But you bring up a really good point, Madeline, and what I see with young people that identify as trans in the mental health community. Often there are symptoms, this may come where there's mental health diagnosis because somebody has identified as trans or LGBTQ, right? And there's some pieces, so there's kind of a very slippery slope of how we look at people and really listen to what they say is going on with them and treat them for the truth, right, of what their experience is, rather than trying to do this labeling or disbelief for people. So I wanted to just echo what you're saying, and I find it even harder for people in my community, family, and work that identify as trans, almost getting it even harder of what people are trying to support. So I just wanted to, I am seeing that across the board with young people as well as parents and older people, when trans is the the identity and the piece that is a connection. For myself, in advocating, one of the things that's really hard for me is that my children have had to advocate a lot on behalf of having a two-mom family. So systems that were uncomfortable with seeing a two-mom family, it was always questioned to them, well, who's mom and who's your aunt? Rather than just understanding for what they called and who they saw my family to be, right? Or their family to be. What is eye-opening to me in that my adult children are all adults over 24, and I'm raising a grandchild. I'm being asked by systems, how am I going to explain to my grandchild that I'm a lesbian? And I can't believe that that is the question. And I would say that the other question is that, what race is your child is just as concerning to me. With, can we start with people are human and then go to this next step? But it was very eye-opening to me 20 years later that it is a concern and a push for people to make their biases or their unknown like it's my problem. It's not my problem. I will explain my family makeup. I will explain and encourage that we love everyone, that there is equality across the board, but the advocacy that comes up about LGBTQ and having and loving or being people also with a disability, we're constantly teaching. The teaching doesn't end in the modeling to teach people to do better, to be comfortable with equality, and then get them to advocacy is just another area that comes up for me. But I really wanted to elevate that, what I see also in the trans community is just extremely saddening and scary.
Thank you.
I'd like to just add to this, because when you mentioned a grandchild, on the other end of things, my grandson is 9. He goes to the Brookline schools, and they have a pride club. And he's always known that his uncle and his aunt are gay. And he's had books about it and everything. So to him, it's very natural and no problem. His uncle is married to a man. So luckily, but that's not true in a lot of places. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but at least, from my heart, to see that this is coming along in some areas, it's really a good thing.
Absolutely. Eddie, would you like to contribute?
Yes. Well, I'm gonna say for me, for me being from Chicago, it's kind of difficult. I'm trying right now. I want to go to the Pride Parade, but it's kind of hard for me to go there because by myself because and I live in a group home, so my staff don't want the residents don't want me to go to the Pride by myself because me being gay, and it's like sometimes people, it's not always the gay people at the parade, it be straight people. And they feel that if I flirt with someone who's not gay, they might hurt me, and because I won't know if they are straight or gay or not. And they want somebody trying to. I think some people are nice. I think some people might be gay or not, and they might try to trick me, and they don't want something to happen to me, and of course, and that kind of make me kind of have a little anxiety because I want to go there, but think about they make me feel like if I go down there, me being, I want to say it's a kind of thing, but for me being who I am, and I'm from Chicago, it's kind of being black and gay. It's kind of like a target, and then people try to use that, try to whether they be like at a target. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, having multiple marginalized identities, being in a group home where you are constantly surveilled in a lot of different ways. Yeah, I'm certain comes with many even more so, difficulties, I'm sure.
Mhm.
I'm sorry that's been your experience trying to attend Pride. I hope you get to.
It's like in Chicago. I mean, I don't know how but Chicago, like people here, it's still a lot of things. Like Chicago, it's people they're not so people are not so great with gay people. They want to try to they a friend, and then I think the fear they don't want somebody try to they don't want somebody trying to I would say somebody that's nice, and then someone who's not gay that might try to do something crazy to me or try to poison me because I think people's nice, and of course if I get alcohol myself I'll be so that's what they don't want that something happen to me because people trick people by people like that. And the problem is people who's not gay that want to trick people like us and try to kill us and do stuff to us. Or, yeah. So they want no lawsuit or something happen like that. So, I mean, I don't know how everybody experience in the different state, but Chicago is kind of like being gay, like always a target. And sometimes people at the parade are not always gay, and they always down low and or hurt people like us. So that's the reason.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And Pauline, welcome back. Would you like to contribute to this question?
Yeah, can you read the question again to me, please?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So it's what are the ways you advocate for what you need as someone who is LGBTQ plus and disabled?
How do I advocate? I advocate by coming up with a lot of ideas, a lot of trainings, and a lot of new things to keep the Rainbow Support Group moving forward and everything like that. I mean, it's not easy moving it forward, but I'm doing little by little and trying to make new changes and new things. And we're making connections, and we're always connecting with somebody. So I got a connection in Canada, and now I got a connection in Australia. So we're connecting. We're connecting with people all over the world and all over the United States. So that's what I'm doing. I'm making those connections so we can have them, we can use them and say, hey, what's going on in your neck of the woods? So that's what I'm doing, trying to just make it better for everybody else, for the ones that are coming up behind me, like Fran and Nora and everybody else like that. So, yeah, so.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think the beginning of your point as well is I just want to kind of reiterate that the importance of not only like big progress events like Supreme Court decisions, for instance, those are big big events of progress, but also there's a lot of little smaller events progress that lead up to it, and all of it's important. So just kind of
Can I
reiterate
just
that.
add to that? So when I joined the Boston Pride Committee for making it inclusive for all, I remember I brought up that I said I'm a person not just having an LGBTQ background, I'm a person with a disability background, and a lot of people turned over and said to me, I couldn't imagine you had a disability or that. And I said, my point I say to them, I'm like, and not every disability is visible. You have to understand that, and you have to incorporate every community, not just like one population like gay or lesbian or even trans community. You have to open it up to all doors to make it inclusive. And I think a lot of times there's a lot of barriers that people think that we have, that we have to stay in our own community. That's not always the case. And we gotta understand that we gotta mingle to get to make new friends or make new connections. And, I just opening up to something like that opened a lot of doors. And I just want to share that they really took the initiative that they say, okay, we will incorporate people with developmental and intellectual disabilities.
That's phenomenal to hear. Good on you for doing that work.
I just wanted to add something a little bit. Like a while back ago, I went to a PFLAG meeting to go be part of PFLAG, right? And I went to this 2-day retreat, and I went and I said, "Hey, I'm Pauline Bosma. I'm the founder of the Rainbow Support Group for people with intellectual disability and everything like that." And everybody in the PFLAG family just looked at me like I wasn't even there. So I kind of said, well, I guess they're not ready for us, because I just left and said, if they're not ready for me, I'm not going to worry about it, because, I tried to reach out to them. They didn't want to, and I'm going like, whatever, but,
Yeah.
I tried, so I just wanted to add that to that little thing.
Yeah, I think that's the both of you have very important points that yes, there are spaces in which being LGBT and disabled can be embraced, can lead to important changes for both of these two parts of our communities, to grow and to become more inclusive of all of us. And also there are other LGBT and disabled spaces that aren't quite ready yet to take that next step. And I think continuing to push and push and push until they are ready to include everyone, to include all LGBT people and or all disabled people, is such important work to do. Although it also doesn't have to be all done by one person either, which is a whole other problem that can arise where a single LGBT person or a single disabled person is repeatedly asked to speak for all LGBT people or all disabled people. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move on to our next question. Question 4, which says, what have your experiences been with the LGBTQ plus community and the disability community as someone who's connected to both? So we kind of already got into this a little bit with Fran and Pauline's comments, but is anyone else or do either of you want to expand on your points?
I just want to say that.
I would.
Yeah, Pauline.
Oh,
I mean, I'm looking at where I met some really, you know, people when I was like that throughout my years of doing it. I think the most interesting person that I met, and I got a picture of her and everything like that, that I met. I met a person who was at Stonewall at the beginning of the movement and everything like that. She came to my table one Pride month, one Pride day, and I had talked to her and I told her about my group. And she said we had a long ways to go, but I was very happy that I was able to talk to her. So
that's phenomenal. Yeah, Fran, you wanted to add something?
I think one thing to realize is the reflect on this is anyone can be anything in this world. It doesn't have to be with a person with a disability. Everyone deserves to have the right education. Everyone deserves to have the right to be LGBTQ. And I had an experience with a teacher telling me I couldn't be gay because that was for the other population. And I remembered when they come out to my classmates and all that. It was a very challenging time that I had to face that one of my friends dared me to kiss a guy to prove it to them. And I said, I don't have to prove anything to you guys. And my friend came over and kissed me. And I won't forget that because they all started making fun of me and they laughed at me and I ran out of the house. And it is a challenging time to time to go back to realize like I'm happy for who I am. I'm proud that I came out, but there's times that I had to relive a moment like that and it's challenging. But I had to remember that I have wonderful family that's around me that's gonna support me along the way.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry you had to experience that you experienced that. That's not okay. But yeah, that does remind me though too of there's in the trans community, there's this phenomenon called the crazy trans woman, what is it, phenomenon syndrome, something like that, where there's a consistent pattern of well, trans women in particular, but I'm sure it also applies to many other communities, many other individuals, of whenever we speak up about our experiences of transphobia, of misogyny, of transmisogyny, that we're labeled as crazy, as not being fully present in the reality of the moment or of what's going on around us, that our experiences, that our naming of our experiences of transphobia, misogyny, transmisogyny are false in some way or made up, because other people don't want to hear it. Whether it's other LGBT people or cisgender heterosexual people, people just not wanting to hear it, and so labeling us repeatedly with the disability or with the label of crazy in order to avoid acknowledging the significance of our claims of violence inflicted on us. And that's all sorts of complicated.
Yeah, why should we have labels? Like, we shouldn't label every single thing. And I don't believe in labels because it just brings me down. And I feel like a lot of times in society, we face labels day to day, and it shouldn't be just a label. It should just be like, okay, you're gay and LGBTQ, you're gay and with a disability. Great, that's awesome. That's who I am. Don't add more labels on top of another label.
Madeline, to go back to your point, I think it is really important that we acknowledge that there is a lot of transphobia, and there's a lot of microaggression within the LGBTQ community about certain members of the LGBTQ community. There's sexism, there's ableism, there's a lot of work to be done, I think, even in our own community in terms of what does true equity and inclusion look like. It's just something that I've had experience with. It's something I've seen firsthand. And it also baffles me, of course, because it's almost seems counterintuitive for someone who can identify as someone within the LGBTQIA family, but then also say there's other members of that acronym that you don't fully respect or include in your own view of equity. So it's just something I think we need to talk more about, and I think there's work there.
Yeah, one of the most impactful, I read an article a few years ago that was deeply impactful to me, which delved into a woman, Marsha P. Johnson, who is a well-known trans woman, Black trans woman from the Stonewall rights, or the Stonewall era, who also struggled with significant mental health difficulties. And to see this woman who did tremendous work for many different marginalized communities, who I greatly admire much of the work that she did, like for her to have also struggled with mental illness to a considerable degree, like similar to myself, was extremely important to me, in seeing that, you know, that even this woman who had done such incredible work also was, in addition to being trans, also disabled in ways. So kind of seeing myself in other people was such an important thing to me for a long time. Sorry, I think Nora wants to go first.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when I used to go to Williams Syndrome conferences, there would be, you know, workshops and different things. And one time they had like a workshop on sex, and people were talking about different things in the room. And then someone said something about loving somebody with the same gender, and everybody was like saying all these homophobic and really derogatory remarks and stuff like that. And it really made me feel bad because, you know, I didn't understand it, because having Williams syndrome is a disability and stuff like that. So I would think that they would be more accepting, but they weren't. So that was a little frustrating. And also when I was in school, I had an experience with this teacher, right? We were all, you know, goofing around in the classroom, and this teacher got mad at us and said that he was going to put a sign on the door that said, "This is the retard room." And he was going to put it on the door to teach us a lesson, supposedly, but I don't think that was, he was teaching special ed, so I don't think that was right for him to do.
No, definitely not.
No.
I'm sorry that happened. That sucks.
Yeah.
Meri, you wanted to add something?
Yes, this is you know, and I'm sorry, Nora, that had happened. It's, you know, terrible. And I think it's important that you mention it, because I think that other people have that experience or similar. So I appreciate you being vulnerable with us. A thing that really helps the young people that I work with, we look at what's harmful and what's helpful. And that's kind of our perspective also in kind of talking about the different things that are both either really helpful and we want people to continue, right, to be able to support, and then also what is harmful. One of the pieces that really comes up for me is I often talk about my white privilege and my experience as a white woman, and then get into kind of different levels of my components. I just wanted to elevate and recognize, often for the brown and black community or communities where this is just really not even going to be accepted, talked about, an awareness. I am often taught in Black and Brown communities, and I know Eddie's with us, not to put you on the spot, Eddie, and other people, but that it's really even more difficult to have that conversation. And if you weren't born here and you're coming from another country, the way that country deals with it is really hard, both on the disability side, but also on the LGBTQ side. And then the other thing that's really been an awareness for me and an experience is working with places around spirituality, and how religion can be a really important piece in a spiritual place for people. And I think we have to be aware of the challenges where people do have sometimes connected to religion, and it could be on the disability side, mental health, it could be other intellectual disabilities, but it can also be on the LGBTQ plus. So that for me is in the last probably 10 years of my work, a real awareness that as hard as my struggle has been, in some of the pieces, the impact of people that are marginalized and the barriers are are harder in a different way. That the shutting out from family, from supports, from just being who you are is even at a different level than what I personally would be able to express in my experience. So I just want to really recognize those two areas as well. And hopefully we highlight it to make it better and to bring that topic to the surface.
Absolutely. I think those are all wonderful points. Does anyone want to expand on that or have something else to add? Yeah, Eddie?
Yes. And what you would say what church thing, I'm saying me, a person who are very spiritual person who come to church, and and I have one time and one time at my workshop, this girl said God don't like gay people. And that kind of made me feel some kind of way, because when I say I'm very, very religious people come to God, to that. And quite me being where I am. It's like when she said that, I kind of feel very offended. It kind of hurt my feelings. And and like somebody used something against me that people know that I like God, and somebody it made me feel very angry. But that's kind of I don't people use race to use faith and way to hurt people, like hurt gay people, and that's not fair. And that's because I might be gay, where it's not really my choice. I didn't choose to be gay. It was something that happened, but So I don't understand why people always use religion as a way to hurt people, because it's like, God brings us through a lot of things and stuff like that, and people say that people don't know what God done for them, and I know I'm not perfect, but just I'm proud to be who I am, but just like some people it's people that who are religious use that to hurt people, and that's not right, and they're not really living their life either. But because I'm gay and Christian, and that's like it's kind of frustrating. So
Absolutely. Very well said. I'm sorry, we are running a little low on time. So I'm just gonna move to this next question, and do we maybe want to have maybe 2 or 3 people have their responses to this one? The question 5 is, what does family mean to you, being both LGBTQ plus and disabled? Want to have maybe 2 or 3 people? Sure.
For me, it means that we need to be there more for one another, because, in general, being LGBTQ with a disability, we don't understand some things, and we need to rely on our family to be to support us from one another. I'm sure that there's been many a times that I question myself about being disability, like after every ISP or any meeting I have with my team, my sister always makes time for me and says, "Did you understand it completely, or do you need more explanation?" And I said, yeah, I get it. And she's like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't get it. Can you explain it to me in a different way?" And if I don't process it right away, she goes over it, like, say, another day. And what I'm trying to say is, that it's always good to have something more explained to you and over again what the support you need to have.
Absolutely. Family can be a tremendously important support if they're there for you as disabled and LGBT people. Yeah, Eddie?
Yes, I'm gonna say for me, being gay and being disability, my family treat me different. They probably know that I have disability, and they treat me different. You know, they just explain stuff. They have to explain stuff that's different from everybody else. You know, that's it. That's my answer.
Okay. Yeah, I think very, very succinctly, very well put. But yeah, being LGBT, being disabled are factors for being treated differently by our families for many of us. And hopefully we are moving towards a place where that is less and less the case, where we can be fully accepted as LGBT plus and disabled people by our families. Yeah, Nora, I'll take you as the last answer to this question.
Okay, what I was going to say is that there's this wonderful couple that have taken me in. It's kind of like family, and it's just been really, really cool because they're LGBTQIA and they've taught me a lot of stuff about different things. So, it's really nice to have them, to have them as like my family, and they were also there for me when my dad passed. So it's nice to have them around.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's not only just the immediate family as support, but your chosen friends and people that support you can be thought of as your family as well.
Yeah, and Fran is like a brother to me, so I love him very much. And I love you too, Eddie.
I'll share him with you, Nora. No, but I love what you're saying. And I think for me, it does resonate that the concept of chosen family very much extends itself to both the LGBTQIA plus community, but also the disability community. And I think that chosen family is life-saving in both communities. And I think that it's the most beautiful part of both communities as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing your answers today.